Hey, everybody, I could not be happier. Wow. If people know me and they've known me for a long time, they know how much I love to hang around with ladies, women. It's just me. It's how it works, ladies. Bring up my ladies so that they're here. There they are. It's uh, it's Ask the Coach for November 22 from the Coalition of Automotive Management Professionals. This is the coaching organization in our industry, and we've done shows. We do shows each and every month, and we all said, "Hey, wow, bring out the ladies all at once." And I says, "That's for me. I love this." With me is Rena Rennebaum from Empowered Advisor, and I would imagine it's empoweredadvisor.com, right?
It is empoweryouradvisor.com.
Empoweryouradvisor.com.
Mhm.
Marianne Croce is here from smallbizvantage.com. Hello, Marianne.
Hi, glad to be here.
And Marianne's also a transmission shop owner with her husband. And Sarah Frazier from Haas Performance Consulting. Hello, Sarah.
Hey, Carm.
I, I think the world knows your dad, Bill Haas. He's a great friend, and so all of these ladies are coaches inside the industry, and they work very hard to advance the aftermarket. So we're here, and by the way, you can get to camp from automotiveprofessionals.com. A lot of great information there from all of the coaches, and they're there united so that we can all be on the same page and move our industry forward. So we're going to talk about three very interesting things today. We're going to talk about millennials, we're going to talk about communication skills, and we're going to talk about mental health in the workplace. Um, until Matt Fonzlo started to do some shows on this to bring some awareness to it. Rena, thank you for, if you will, kind of jockeying this up in I think, a very important discussion. You're out there, I know, coaching so many people each and every day and week. Do you think mental health is an issue somewhere inside of our industry?
I do. I think it's an issue everywhere. And my question today is it okay to talk about in the workplace? And if so, how far do we go with it? And, before the show today, I talked to a few shop owners and I asked them, how do you guys handle this when you know that somebody is struggling? And the best response that I've heard so far is that they just let the person know that they care about them. And they let them know that if they want to talk, that they're there, they're available to talk. And from a coach's perspective, we work with people in a really vulnerable place. Like we're helping them be better at their craft. And a lot of the time we're not able to grow professionally if we are in some way stunted personally. So if we're struggling with mental health, we don't see a lot of growth with them professionally. And so, opening up and asking the question, how are you? How are things? And then hearing that there's some really heavy things going on in people's lives. And, I allow people to talk. And I'm lucky I have a background in psychology and I didn't know how helpful it would be. But man, it has come in just really, really helpful.
Well, that's so interesting that you've got a background in psychology, but what does a coach do with that information that they're gleaning and they're getting? And they don't work for you. You're there to make them better at what they do. Is there a phone call to their superior?
Sometimes it just depends. I read a lot of books, and so I will recommend that people read books. I will recommend that you can tell me what's going on. I can be somebody that you can vent to. I'm not paid to give them any mental health advice. But I can tell them that I would recommend that they talk to somebody and, hey, I think that this would be a really good book to read. I mean, that's essentially what a therapist does, right? Is they listen, they give advice, and they generally give you homework, which is, I think you should read this book. So, knowing that you guys have done shows on mental health, as soon as we're done with this broadcast today, I'm going to go look at those and I'm going to put those in my reference files so that I can share those with people too. Because I think that that's what we can do is we can let people know you're not the only one and there are resources. And that's so yeah, that's essentially what I feel like I do best.
And Carm is silent for such a long time, just in case Marianne and
Oh.
Sarah wanted to
Oh,
chime in.
yeah, I actually do have a few things to chime in. I think a big part of it too is just normalizing and talking about it, having awareness, not making employees feel bad if they need to take a day off to have a mental health day, and accepting that as something that's part of life and it's okay. And even offering mental health benefits. I talk about Gen Z a lot, and that's something that they are looking for is access to mental health benefits, whether that's access to like a online platform like BetterHelp or just whatever, to have that extra benefit as well. And I think just, yeah, having understanding and being the kind of person that your employees can talk to and that they can trust and respect, and that they, kind of take the fear out of it, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, I could give you a couple examples, both as a coach and as a shop owner myself, because I still do own a shop. When COVID hit, one of the biggest concerns that my husband and I had was how is this going to affect mental health? People being isolated, no matter where you are in the world, all different countries, right? For centuries, isolation was a form of punishment, and
Mhm.
it can cause a lot of havoc, right, on people. So, even though we were considered essential in our industry, there were a lot of spouses, significant others, children that were home. So, we had a plan, and we told everyone it was the last thing was letting anyone go, that we wanted to keep everyone employed, and we were going to give them weekly updates and come up with a plan of what we were going to do, and that
Mm.
put their mind at ease. The other thing was is we let them know that if my door's always open, you can talk to me, ask me questions. If I don't have the answer to that question, I will find out for you. And again, to Sarah's point, to let them know that mental health benefits, if they didn't realize that that was part of the benefit package, that they could contact. And I shared these stories with clients as well, and it was helpful. The cool thing about this, the amazing thing, even though we're a small team, a small shop, was that couple of people had come into my office and actually said, "I feel so much better coming to work because we're
Mm.
doing things, and this was really good. I don't wanna be home. I don't wanna be sitting in front of the television not knowing what to do." So I think that plan part of it and keeping your team informed and letting them know that you're there for them is huge, and that they're that to Rena's point, we're not therapists, but to just share and allow yourself to be vulnerable. If you don't have the answer to something, let them know that you're gonna, dig a little deeper and find out.
I think to normalize it is to talk about it,
Yeah.
right? Is to ask your employees and ask each other, "How are you? Is everything good?" And then to have the time to actually hear the response. One of the shop owners that I talked to this morning, he said, "I am having meetings with each of my employees separately, and I am asking them how they are and what they need." And keeping that on a regular basis. So normalizing it is asking on a regular basis and then being available to listen. And I love being able to take your employees out away from the shop and have a meal with them and talk and ask how things are.
I think, to that point, Rena, finding ways to pour into your people is huge. I'm lucky. My boss is my dad. We're very comfortable. I get to, talk to him about everything that's stressing me out. But a little over a year ago, I was just in a rut, and he could tell. Like, I lost my spark. I was frustrated. I wasn't sure what I was doing. I had a lot of imposter syndrome going on, and he sent me to a women's leadership retreat that just relit the spark and the fire. And I got to be surrounded by some amazing women and have that connection, and just came back completely different and ready to, embrace some of the challenges I was going through. So I think just finding resources like that to help pour into our employees too.
That's
What
so
what a
awesome.
what a great point.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about what you said, Rena, this whole normalizing and the awareness thing, you got to use your gut every once in a while, your intuition, that there could be something wrong. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes a look is worth 1,000 words. Sometimes a shrug is worth 1,000 words. Sometimes a no smile is worth 1,000. And I love the idea about separate meetings. I want to warn people about that. Here's my warning: if your first meeting doesn't go well, and you didn't get what you think you wanted, and the person didn't open up, don't give up,
Have
because
another one.
that person's testing you too. What does Carm want?
Yeah.
And I think you gotta make it consistent. And once there's a
Yes.
trust developed, then I think the value of that one-on-one caring moment, empathize, sympathize thing starts to happen.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, consistency is key.
So why
Yeah.
is this going on? Why, everyone? Why are we talking about this? Listen, it's been going on forever, but we seem to be in times that are very, very stressful.
Well, I think a lot of times what happens is when life happens to everyone. So people may be going through something in their own life, but right now, what we're seeing with the economy and all different things that everyone's feeling the effects of. And I think when people feel a loss of control, a loss of like that sense of control, it people hold back, people become fearful, they don't know what to expect, and it's a scary place to be, but it happens,
Mhm.
and owners can be great leaders to be able to lead their team. This actually ties into some of what I wanted to talk about today is I find that many owners come to me because one of the things that they're challenged with, even though they have a team, they feel like it's really hard to delegate. It's hard to let things go and hand things off. And the key here is it's funny because they actually find out when they're able to do this that they can actually gain more control of their business when they're able to let go of some things. It's hard to believe, but it really happens. And one of the big things is communication, being able to communicate with your team, with your customers, and your suppliers, your vendors, all of that is a huge, huge key factor. It's actually a strategy for being able to delegate. And control is one of the parts. There's four parts to it, and control is actually one of the parts. We're all emotional creatures. Things are going to happen, and we're entitled to our feelings. We're entitled to our emotions, but as an owner, as a leader, can you control your emotions? Can
Mhm.
you sit down and come up with a plan? Or do you just wait for something to happen and then it's like, oh no, everyone knows the owner is kind of losing it, right? They're not in control of what's going on. And this is especially true when there's challenge because it's easy to be in control when, everything's going right and the right parts come in and the customers are wonderful and everyone shows up. But how do you stay in control when there's challenge? So it's really good to think about that part of it. The second part, which everyone here touched on a little bit, is conversation. Conversation is a two-way street and it involves listening. Listening, not listening to just let them finish and then say what you want to say, but listen to go in and then ask questions. Maybe you need a little bit more clarifying questions. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How did you come up with that? Those types of things. Now, you're having that two-way conversation with people. The other third part of it is collaboration. Now we're actually getting people's input, their feedback. We want their suggestions, their ideas. And then the last part of it, which many shop owners that I'm, coaching and dealing with and talking to on a regular basis, they do care about their brand. They care about their community. They care about their team. They care about that. They care about their business. But When we look at it from the perspective of someone else, we dive a little bit deeper. Do you care what motivates them? Do you care what's meaningful to them? Do you care enough to go a little bit deeper and provide certain things for your team, such as the benefits, those types of things? Look at it from their perspective. And when you put all of four of these together, the control, the conversation, the collaboration, and caring, what happens is now you have connection. And when you connect with people, they trust you. When we connect with people on some level, that's when we trust them. And that's when you can start handing things off and letting your team shine. And I'm curious to hear what Sarah and Rena think of that, what they've seen.
So, as giving up, like an owner giving up control, um, that's where I come in, right? Like if they hire somebody who comes in and works with their team, now that is something that is removed from their plate, right? So we go in and we listen to the recorded calls, we audit the repair orders, we are doing all of those things. And now it isn't the boss that's giving the constructive criticism, it's somebody else. And so now they can play the role of the hero, of the friend, of, like a different role, because now you have somebody in your business who is able to come in and point out their areas of weakness or areas of opportunity. And so I find that when we go in and we interview an entire shop, right? So we go in, we talk to the technicians, we talk to the advisors. I will talk to somebody that washes cars, the shuttle driver, and I get everybody's inside information. And it's interesting, right? Because I'm this third party that they don't know. And so people will tell me things about the business that they would not tell their boss. And I did this a couple years ago with a shop. The shop actually flew me out to the shop, had me spend 2 days at the shop. I interviewed everybody that worked there. You want to know what the takeaway was? We don't have birthdays any longer. That was their takeaway. And I'm like, why didn't you guys say something? Because they just didn't feel comfortable saying it.
Right.
And the other takeaway was, we want more meetings. We don't have meetings. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, it's so easy, but it was unanimous.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person mentioned, we're not doing birthdays any longer and we don't have meetings. That was my takeaway from 2 days. But you want to know what? They have implemented those things and their team is stronger and better than it has been. And part of it is because, number one, you hired somebody to come find out what's missing in the shop. And then secondly, you took action.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great example. I find the same thing. I find that a lot of times owners think it's something external that's holding their business back, and it really isn't. It's that willingness to grow, that willingness of growing themselves and developing their skills as an owner, as a leader. I always tell people, business grows as owners and leaders grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of what you were just saying really talks to the culture of that shop too, celebrating birthdays, having that open communication. What I've been really involved with lately is actually hiring people for shops and doing a lot of interviews and writing job ads. And I found that when we write job ads that talks about the culture of the business and talks
Mm-hmm.
about, having team lunches or team outings or things like that, that really attracts people. And I just interviewed somebody yesterday who straight up said to me, I would work somewhere where I made less money if it was a really great culture at that company. So that's huge. And then, Marianne, a lot of the stuff you were saying just super ties into so much of what I talk about millennials, because that's what we want. We want to be empowered to do our job. We want communication. We want to be talked to. We want to be checked in with all the time. If you don't tell us how we're doing, we think we're doing the worst. Like, we need that communication. We need that talking to all the time. We need the ability to give feedback. We need the ability to have our ideas heard and to be recognized. And then I want to add on to that, the appreciation piece that I think is really missing sometimes is just telling your employees thank you and how much they matter and how much we appreciate them coming to work. And even if it's something little that they did, that they went out of their way for somebody to just acknowledge it and say, hey, that was really awesome, or hey, thank you for stepping up and taking care of that, or for covering this shift, or for staying late, or whatever, even if we look at that as just an expectation, to make sure we're making them feel appreciated. And that goes such a long way.
It's
You
so
know,
true. Go ahead, Verena.
oh, I was gonna say, it's funny because I think that millennials made it more acceptable. That era told us it's more acceptable to talk about our feelings and our emotions. And the funny thing is I don't really care what generation you're from. You need it.
Yeah.
There are generations out there that are like, no, I don't need to hear how I'm doing. But the truth is they probably need to hear it more than anybody else.
Yes.
And so that's what I contribute the millennial era to, is opening us up to the idea that talking about feelings is okay, and you're not a wimp if you talk about it. It's also not required, right? If you don't want to, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to push somebody out of their comfort zone, but it's true that every generation needs it. We just didn't know we needed it.
It's so true. Every generation, even, you look back in my generation, everyone wanted to feel valued and
Mhm.
appreciated at their job. Everyone, and they wanted to know that they were making a difference. And it's the same thing now with millennials. And to your point, I have to say, and I've always said this because my kids are millennials, they're a very giving generation. They will help you. Whether it's technology, whether it's whatever it is, something that is just so part of their day to day life, they will help you. They're very, very giving.
We're very team oriented. We really do like to work together. When we look at Gen Z, that's a little bit different. They're definitely more on the independent side of things. But when you're talking, 25 to 40-year-olds in that millennial range, we are huge team workers, work together people. Not saying that Gen Z doesn't like to give and take care of people. They do. They just work a little more independently on that.
Sarah, what is Gen Z? Like, how old are Gen Z people?
Gen Z is 9 to 24.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And a lot of people still look at early 20-year-olds and are like, oh, those are millennials. They're not. Like, I'm a millennial. I'm 37. Like, we're getting old. Millennials are not in our early 20s anymore. So,
Oh, that's so
and so
old,
Verified
Sarah.
I
fact.
know
Sarah, you are old.
40 is 3 years away. It's creeping up.
I think me and your
Um,
dad might argue that point.
but yeah, I think that's such an important piece because we've been talking about millennials for so long, and then we look at these young people and we go, oh, millennial mentality, and they're so different.
No, you are
And
so
they
right.
really
I gotta stop you for a minute. I've been doing this show for 7 years, and back 7 years ago, we really, maybe five, we really started to creep in with a lot of millennial discussions. And we totally forgot that Gen Z was happening, 9 to 24 years old, and we kind of buttoned, if you will, the millennials in that young 20 group, and it's really not. Thank you for pointing that out.
Time flew faster for us, Carm. That's what happened.
Oh,
So is it Gen Z or millennials or both that don't want to get their driver's license?
um probably mostly Gen Z. I don't really have any facts on that, but I can give my personal opinion. I think just having access to rideshare makes it really not necessary to get your license. Most of my friends got their license when they turned 16. I didn't until I was 18. I still don't like to drive. That's just me personally, like never had a desire for it. Where my dad talks about his generation, that was freedom. Like getting your driver's license was freedom. But now when you look at Gen Z, they have freedom. We have Uber and Lyft and all these other things and ways to get places. And if you live in a city with great public transportation, like it's just not that like freedom rite of passage anymore. Not saying that they're not getting there, they are still, there are a lot of them that still do get their driver's license and get excited about it. But yeah, I would say it's probably more in the Gen Z era than the millennials.
Yeah, my nieces and nephews are Gen Z, and the three oldest did not want to get their driver's license. My sister had to basically force them. She was like, all right, guys, I can't take all of you everywhere. Someone is
Yeah.
going to need to help out here. And I know my 16-year-old niece, she wanted her driver's license, but she was
Yeah.
the only one out of the 4 that wanted a driver's license.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just, I was curious about that when I saw your note about Gen Z. First off, I'm curious, like, why are we starting to talk about Gen Z? They're 25, so they're coming into the workplace, but are we seeing Gen Zs as customers yet?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We are.
Hmm.
We have been for, a couple years now.
Hmm.
We've got some that are, if you look at your age range of 16 when you start driving to 24 being the older end of Gen Z, we definitely
Yeah.
have them as customers. We have them as employees. I've taught a lot of classes where I ask people, do you have Gen Z employees? And they do. And even going back to the mental health piece that we started with, when I talk about Gen Z, one thing that I discovered and learned a lot about them is they're very cautious, and safety is incredibly important to them. And so when I thought about that, I kind of went back and I looked at things that had happened as this generation was growing up. And I mean, one of the hardest things for me to talk about is that 9 of the top 10 deadliest shootings in US history have happened in their lifetime. Like, and it's just, yeah, so they have a very different outlook on life from millennials. When I think about it, Columbine happened when I was just going into high school. But high school didn't change for me. We didn't have lockdown. We didn't have intruder drills. Like, we didn't go through anything like that. And that's standard for somebody in Generation Z. So they do really appreciate like having safety in place, and they have a sense of fear that's unknown to generations previous to them.
Hmm.
Let me stop the dialogue for a moment and chime in. Wheels for my generation, Marianne, I think yours too, was freedom.
Hmm.
And although I heard you, Sarah, on the ride share, I get that. Is rideshare, does it provide the kind of freedom that a set of your own wheels or even mom or dad's car would provide? And if that's the case, and it's going to be rideshare for a large percent, are we fixing the rideshare cars?
We are. I know we have a shop who offers like a service plan specific to Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, things like that. So I have seen in the industry shops that are catering towards that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the customers that are younger that come into our shop, we take the opportunity, even though chances are with someone who is very young, mom or dad is helping them out with paying for that. But treating them with respect and communicating with them the way they want to be communicated with, I think is very important to the fact that you're giving them a good experience in your shop, and
Hmm.
they'll be a future customer as they, continue and, get their own vehicle. Maybe they're not sharing a family vehicle, but get their own vehicle. And I think it's just a good way to do business to address your customers' needs.
Yeah, I feel for me as a coach, what the millennial era taught me was that there is a completely a different type of buying style. We would look at people as, how long should we be on the phone with them? And now we say, do we even need to have a phone call with them? And I don't think that that is just specific to millennials. I think that that era brought on a lot of new technology and people also accepting that I will have communication through text and I'm happy to, and I would actually prefer to. I know that for a service advisor, it's so important that you have multiple selling styles, that
Mhm.
you aren't just the advisor that only will text people, right? Like, well, especially like a millennial advisor, I have to spend a lot of time helping them learn how to communicate like on a phone call or in person because they're really good at communicating through a text. But not everyone wants to be communicated through a text. And so it's really important that when you are in customer service or a service advisor, that you realize that this person wants me to only communicate through text and this person is better through a phone call. So it's brought on a new buying style is I think the best way for me to describe how I have grown from that era.
Yeah, it depends on what type of job these people have as well. They're not able to talk when a service advisor or someone would call them and
Mhm.
find out, to give them some information on their vehicle, and to know what their style is key. I think when I talk to owners, the biggest thing for them as far as being able to delegate and hand some things off is, are they making the most of the software that they have that they're already paying
Mhm.
for? And is their team being trained on that? Because I find that there's a lot of features that the team isn't even using or making the most of. And that's another way to empower them, give them the resources needed so that they can hand some of these responsibilities off that they've been doing and they continue to do.
Mhm.
Can
That's
I
a
can I
good
touch
point.
on what Matt just put in the chat?
Yeah,
Oh,
please
Um,
yeah.
do, Sarah, because
What did he
have
say?
I have a
um,
comment on that too.
so he said we should provide badges or trophies to millennials for, showing up and frequenting our establishments. My take on that is yes, we're trophy kids, and I don't need a physical medal or trophy for showing up. But I will say when I bring my car in and somebody like the service advisor goes, "Oh wow, you're doing a really good job of maintaining your vehicle." That's my trophy. That's my
Yeah.
medal. You just patted me on the back. You made me feel really good. Hashtag adulting. Like that's, the just like complimenting me because I actually showed up and brought my car in for service, which may sound silly, but that's the trophy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that everybody would like that,
Yeah.
right? Like, who wouldn't like to be told, like, "Oh, thanks for making it to your appointment." And I know that there are some people that are like, "I'm just not willing to do that. You just did what you were supposed to do." I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I know, and you know what? Deep down inside, I have that feeling too. But I know that if I encourage you or compliment you or, yes, provide you with your trophy, I'm going to get a better result from you. And so it's in my best
Yeah.
interest to give you a trophy, even though deep down inside, I'm like, I'm giving you a trophy for showing up for an appointment.
Yeah. And what Jamie just said about going to the dentist, like, when the dentist compliments you on your teeth, if I go to the dentist and all they do is yell at me and tell me what a bad job I'm doing, I'm not going back. I'm like,
Yeah.
not going to that dentist again. But yeah, if they're like, wow, like you're doing a good job, or even just constructive, something that's not so like, yeah, that is, and Matt had a good point about video games too, like just that some sense of accomplishment, like just
Yeah, that
something.
trigger.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
That is a good point.
people wanna know that, because think about during the course of a day, how many shop owners will somebody will cancel an appointment, or you'll have a no-show and they won't even call, and you've scheduled that time out, whether it's lift time, a technician time, for that time to be available for that person, and then they're a no-show, and then you're following up to see. So, and that could kind of, make the day where you're juggling a lot. So the fact that someone does call, the fact that someone says I need to reschedule ahead of time, or the fact that they did show up on time, I mean, thanks for doing that. It's
Yeah.
simple. It's not that.
Yeah. I just actually I just got done with a peer group that I was teaching, and one of the topics was contacting the no-shows and what the meaning of that is. And I think that there are two meanings. There is one that says I care about you and I want to make sure that you're okay and get you back on the schedule. And the other one is a little bit of a scolding, like, you had an appointment today and you didn't make it, and we recognize that. So I think it does a couple things. And so, if you don't want that person to not no show again, and I don't care if you think they're a good customer or not, because that's some of the feedback I was hearing is, well, we don't call customers that weren't good customers. And it's like, well, you can also let them know that they're not a good customer by calling them and saying, hey, you had an appointment. That was important to us. We set that time aside and you weren't here. Are you okay? So I'm going to scold you, but I'm also going to praise you or let you know you're important.
Yeah, because you may find out that something actually did happen.
Mhm.
And right, you're not creating this negative story in your mind. Something actually did happen, and you'll be more than happy to reschedule it. So yeah, because life happens, people have a lot going on. So I think it's definitely a good thing to reach out, keep those lines of communication open so that
Mhm.
they do feel good about coming to your business.
But
There,
isn't this also work internally for our employees, right? Like just those little trophies of like, hey, you had a really great week. Like those compliments that you're talking about, Sarah,
yep.
is like, it is the little trophies. And it doesn't matter if the person is a millennial or if they're a
Right.
Z or an X or an A
Mm-mm.
or a B. Everybody
Yeah.
should hear that they do a great job and that we appreciate them. And Carm, you said, so if you get like, you take your employee out to lunch and you don't get what you want, don't stop. And I think that that's what happens is if you start this new thing in your shop where you start appreciating your employees, their response is like, whoa, wait, wait, why are you, you're welcome.
What's
This
going
was a
on?
I'm,
strange meeting.
I
uh,
I taught a class once where I talked about appreciating your employees, and at break, somebody who was in my class went and texted all of their employees because they were at a conference, so texted everyone that was back at the shop and said, thank you so much, you're doing a great job, da 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 da. He came up to me during break and was telling me about it, and he goes, and a lot of them responded with, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" Like that should
yeah.
not, like when you thank your
Right.
employees, that should not be the response,
And
It's
so
No.
that's the point. If you're going to do this and you're going to take out every employee individually for lunch or, no matter where in the shop, everyone's just say,
Yeah.
"Hey, what was that about? Do you still work here?
Am I
You know,
getting fired?
yeah, are you getting fired? What's going on?
Yeah.
Is he selling you the business? What's going on?"
yeah.
A-
So
and
that
and
makes me want
and
to talk about transparency because and somebody commented too about people having a fear of our industry like they do with the dentist, and that's where it's our job to really be transparent with our customers about the process and what it looks like and what to expect, and to make sure we have photos of what it's going to look like when they get there, and what they need, what information they need if any ahead of time, and having that make it as less intimidating and as less scary as we possibly can, and hold our hand, hold the customer's hand, if you will, through the process. So
Mhm.
Absolutely. When you go to these different conferences in the industry, I talk to a lot of shop owners that are saying things like, "Oh, my phone has been blowing up. I have to go out at the first sign of a break, or they'll run out of the room and they're going to see what's happening." Or if the conference is ending, they're like, "Oh, I can't wait to go back and see what's going on." And the expression on their face or the body language might be, I don't know what I'm going to find when I go back on Monday, because they went and their team was back at the shop. So when I think of that, I say to myself, they're looking at it from the perspective of how did my team do? Where I turn around and look at it, what did you give them the resources needed so that when you are away, they know what's expected and they know what to do and they know what's okay and what's not okay, right? So it's almost like it's a litmus test for the owner to see, can I leave my shop and how do things run? If there are holes, that's an opportunity to go back and take a look at those things.
yeah, how did
Such
I
a
do?
great
How did
point.
I do? Yeah,
yeah.
isn't it?
That's what I was going to say too,
Yeah,
Carm, is this is a testament to how I, the owner, did. How did I
Exactly.
do? Did I give them enough? Is there a process and a procedure for everything that they need to do?
Right. And
I
they
think
know
it
what it
shows if
is.
you're, yeah, if do I micromanage? And if I do, then I can't leave my team alone.
yeah,
Well, a lot of times we assume, right? People assume because you've been doing something and you haven't formally gotten it out of your head. So you didn't explain certain things. So they're making decisions on the fly with no type of structure. And then we're grading them when we should be actually looking at it as an opportunity to go back and say, okay, how did I do? Now, I mean, let's face it, a lot of owners aren't taught this. So, it's an opportunity to, there's tons of resources, to get some help. But
Mhm.
there's lots of resources right here. These
Hmm.
podcasts are a
oh my
great
God,
resource too.
what
Yeah.
a so here was the challenge before we turned on the live button here. We says, "Wow, well, we're gonna go from mental health to millennials to communication. You think we can pull this off, ladies?"
We married
And
them.
Oh, yes.
oh my God, did you ever? I mean, it all worked. It was just tight. It was together. I am so proud of the work that you did. I think this is just an incredible episode here on the camp Facebook page. It's also on my YouTube page, and I think on my Facebook page, and it'll be on the camp website. And go to the camp website if you want to get in touch with any of these ladies, if you really admire the great content that they brought here. And then I want to make a comment. As Sarah and Marianne have been on shows with me in the past, but recently in September I did an episode with Rena, and of course number 2 person in the company, Tracy, my daughter. We were at Rena's home, and we were filming a great service advisor connection to how that works with avocados and how to raise avocados and how to raise service advisors. So if you have not seen the avocado episode 124, it was a blast. Thank you so much for inviting us to come out.
Thanks for coming. It was a pleasure.
It was wonderful. Hey, ladies, let's go around the room. We'll do Marianne, Sarah, and Rena. Any final thing you want to put a bow on this?
Yeah, I would like to say to the owners that are out there that you've taken a risk, you've opened up your business, and many of you have achieved levels of success. But I find that many owners get to a point where they feel like they're stuck or they feel like their business has plateaued. And being able to delegate is huge because it can actually help you with a lot of things in your business. All areas of your business can be more successful. And it also allows you to be able to step away as you need or want to. Many owners haven't taken a vacation. So I would say, step out of your comfort zone and, get some guidance, listen to these, reach out to a coach at camp, and get the help because you don't have to go it alone.
Hey, thank you for all the great chatter on social media today. It was really, well, I think the audience you played right into their hands, ladies. I'm sure that's exactly what happened. Sarah, any final words, thoughts?
Just gonna kind of add to what Marianne said. Yeah, just be open to empowering your people and having conversations with them and lifting them up and pouring into them and appreciating them and saying thank you and get like she said, getting out of your comfort zone a little bit and maybe doing things differently than you've done them before, but adapting to the wants and the needs of your employees and your customers.
Yeah, to a point. If I don't care if you're a Gen X or you're a boomer, you
Yeah.
just you cannot go through life with that, if you will, some blinders on as to how you were treated growing up in the business, and you were probably treated by a silent generation individual that had no clue what all of our needs and wants were as individuals growing, and society has put so much pressure, just the fear of missing out, keeping up with the Joneses that social media is all about, puts the way you have to lead your people in a completely different vein. Thank you for that, Sarah. Rena, you have the last word.
Oh, okay. So I think that mental health, recognizing it and addressing it creates a healthy work environment, a healthy culture. And so to go back to what Marianne and Sarah both said about delegating, is generally the business owner is so busy that they don't have time to address it. And so I think that delegating works so that you can help everybody to create a healthy culture for your shop. Just taking them out to lunch and doing the little things, asking them if they are okay.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rena. Megan Dinoff, Facebook face, she said, "Oh my God, we could do 2 hours on that, can't we?" Rena Rennebaum, Marianne Croce, Sarah Frazier, thanks for being on this November's all-female camp. Actually, not me, but you. Yeah. Maybe I should have had Tracy on to moderate this, and then we
should have. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Next time.
Thanks,
ladies.
Harm.